in Bedworth, near Coventry in the Midlands. And joining me on the Isle of Wight are Sharon, or is Sharon,
Hello. I is
and
here.
in Bournemouth, all the way from his childhood bedroom, where he's currently trying to find a nice, comfortable position in which to have an hour conversation about film while on his
That's it.
childhood bed. Joining me
Yeah.
from all the way from Bournemouth is Shaun.
Hi, you guys. All right.
Hi. So, how are you guys doing?
Yeah, I'm really, really. I'm loving this weather. Absolutely loving this weather. I can't, been out all day and it really can't fault it.
Yeah.
Long may it last, but I think it's going to get cold the weekend. So,
Ooh.
but
Ooh.
yeah, I can do that. I pooted about in the garden, did a bit of water in, see how my
Shaun, you're disappearing again. You're freezing again.
doing some. Am I okay? Perhaps I'll go and sit on this. I'll sit on an uncomfortable set and see if it can. How's that? Let's see if that counts.
Well, at the moment it's better. We'll see. So you were saying,
we'll see what happens.
Yeah, you were saying about putting it around the garden.
Yeah. So, and I sort of planted some. I tried my green fingers planted some seeds in the greenhouse, and they're about this. Well, about what they just come up. They're about an inch. I think they're passion flowers. Come up about an inch, about maybe inch and a half high. So it's pretty good. So I must have green fingers, I reckon.
Cool, good stuff.
They're a climber, so they will grow to be about 30 feet high if you have them in the right position.
Yeah, well, what there is like that's the plan, because what there is like a on the sidewall down the thing, but it gets the sun most of the day. But there's some trellises and there's nothing there, so I thought that's where they go.
Okay, so they will take over your garden, but they'll be very pretty when they flower.
Yeah. I figured that.
They will fill up the gaps.
That's what I'm trying to work out. I'm sort of separating things and keeping, but it's amazing how things grow so quick. Well, Sharon, but they just go. So I might take you for a little tour, a little visual tour, shall I? Sometime I'll do that.
I'll tell you what, Shaun, because it's now becoming a thing where you actually almost whenever we record a podcast, you go out and you film a little bit of something. It's like Shaun in the wild, Shaun in nature.
Yeah.
You can film something with your passion flowers.
Okay. I'll show you. Yeah, I'll do a little video of them.
Yes, do a video of your passion flowers and show us how you have been making good with your lockdown time.
Right. Okay.
Right. Yeah. So I was talking about about a structure that we figured out that's going to work. So what we've been doing, because usually on this show, if you've listened to this show, you would know that what we usually do is that we have. We go to the cinema. We watch 3 films usually. We stay at home. We watch 3 films on Netflix or any other streaming platform. And we rate them all out of 5. We rate them, and then at the end, we take an average and we say, who do we think has won this week? Has it been Netflix and Friends or cinema? Obviously, there are no cinemas at the moment. So what we have been doing is we have been interviewing people about cinema and asking them questions about, okay, what do you actually love about cinema? And what we're going to do now, our structure is that we're first going to talk about what it is that we've been watching, what our viewing habits have been like in the lockdown. Then we're going to have the interview. And then after the interview, we are going to answer one of the 4 questions that we ask every single interviewee. We have a couple of really good interviews coming up, like this week, next week. I've got a couple of people that I'm really excited about lined up. Nobody, I guess they wouldn't take this the wrong way, but nobody famous. But just what they say about cinema is, I actually really like the interviews I've done so far. So the questions we ask them are, what is the first film you saw at cinema? What's the last film you caught before the lockdown? Why do you love going to the cinema? And what are you most looking forward to seeing when the cinemas reopen? Now, I'm not sure whether you guys saw about this, but on that last question, what are you most looking forward to seeing when the cinemas reopen? Did you see the news this week about the View Cinemas boss talking about wanting to reopen cinemas by mid-July?
No, I didn't see that. No.
Yes. Yeah, the View Cinemas boss, somebody by the name of Tim Richards, I believe, he was talking to the BBC and he said he's talking to the authorities about getting social distancing measures put into cinemas, because he says, unlike a football game, we can control how many people come into the cinema. So I think, we were talking about every other seat. Although, Sharon, they still need to get on board with your idea from last week of just bringing back the drive-in.
Yeah.
Bring back the drive-in, solve all your problems. Solve all our problems. I mean, that idea is still blowing up things in my head. Drive-in cinemas, bring them back.
I would think with cinemas, because quite often they're not full, are they? So you have got the space.
Yeah.
You have got the space,
Yeah.
in the week especially.
And with the Cineworld cinemas that we are most familiar with, when you go and book your ticket, you turn the screen around and it shows you what seats are taken. So I'd imagine you could certainly, if it's alternate rows and alternate seats, you could certainly place people apart quite easily by just looking at the screen and just going.
Yeah, and you can say those are the only tickets available. You could cordon off rows, so you can actually do it. You can do it. He says that they were hoping to get back for the 17th of July, because that's when Christopher Nolan's action movie Tenet is due to be released. So that's he says he's talking to the government about it. Now, as much as I love the idea of this, it does seem a bit soon to me. I don't know about you guys.
July seems a bit. When we think how quickly April went, it just went, didn't it? Yeah. And you think July, it's a couple of months to cut. It's a couple of months hence, but I think it's still too soon.
Yeah,
I think we'll be where in May we'll be thinking certainly nothing. I can't imagine anything is going to happen really in May.
Yeah,
and then we're in June, and then it's like, whoa, yeah. I think July is probably too soon.
Yeah. Although having said that, if cinemas do reopen in mid-July, you know that I'm going to be there the 12:30 in midday showings. As long as everybody else has gone back to work and the people are not working from home, those should be the empty ones. Because I've been to a couple of those and I'm like the only one in the cinema. So I'm like, you can't get more socially distanced than this. So
probably bring in measures like taking your temperature or something bizarre just to say, look, because of all the air conditioning and the way they recycle air, you're thinking they'll probably have to do something else. But it might be one of those. What temperature are you? And if you're average, then you can go in.
I do actually know somebody who is selling thermal imaging cameras at the moment that can take your temperature as you walk past them. So it will be a bit like, you know how when you go to when you're at the airport and you walk through when you're at the airport and you walk through a metal scanner, there's an area you walk past and it just sort of scans you as you're walking along and says what your temperature is. So somebody can just be sat down there looking at the screen and going, Nope, take him out. He's not allowed in. And I think a lot of places like stadiums and all that are going to have those for a while. And
they're going to be like, you can't come with your running fever.
Yeah, so if you're listening to this and you would like one of those cameras, get in touch with me. Netflix versus cinema on Twitter. I know a guy who'll get you a nice thermal imaging camera.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So we've got Sharon, you got the app, haven't you? Have you got
I've got my COVID tracking trace app.
Oh yes! Oh my God! Yeah, you guys are the Isle of Wight. You're the first people ever to get the sort of like contact tracing app. What's the app like?
It's very easy. I mean, we got our letter today. Every household on the island. They sent out 40,000 today, so 40,000 were delivered this morning. We got ours this morning.
Yep.
Very early, and I thought, well, I decided I was going to do it anyway. And so you literally go to the website, you click on where you want to download the app from, and you have a choice of 2 app stores. And you literally get taken straight into the page. You install it, open it, put in your postcode, and that's it. And they say, are you feeling okay? It's like, yes. If you're feeling fine, you don't have to do anything else. That was it. So you literally postcode to prove you're on the Isle of Wight. It's make sure you have to say, and they just say, do you give them permission to access your location? And you just say, yes, I give you permission to access my location. And that you have to have Bluetooth running. That's the only thing. I don't habitually have that running on my phone all the time. But it's there. And so on my phone screen, I've got a little NHS symbol that sits in the top corner of my screen. That's there all the time.
Oh wow!
So it shows that my NHS COVID-19 tracker is working.
So if you'd have put in, Sharon, I'm not feeling so well, but it might not be COVID, and you went to people, everybody would have to self-isolate, even if you might have a headache or something like that. You know what I mean? I know I'm putting that in the thing, but I mean...
think it's a bit more complicated than that. It's not an instant thing. If you say, I'm not feeling very well, you then go to another screen, because they go through this in the booklet that you'll get. You get given a little leaflet. I'll go get it in a minute. You get given a little leaflet. And basically saying, and they take you to another screen. It's like, okay, what's your symptoms? How long have you had these symptoms? Blah, 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 blah. And then I think if you then it gets to that point where they say it's likely that you have COVID, you'll get sent a test kit at home. And then
All
once
right.
you've tested, they then will ping to say someone has been tested. And so anyone you've been in contact distance of will then get a ping saying, at some point, you have been in contact with this person.
Okay, you
But it
see
all
that.
depends on how many people have the COVID-19 tracker app. Because I could be passing 20 people in the supermarket. And if only one of those has the app, then 19 other people may be symptomatic.
Yeah.
And we won't know about them. We only know about the one person who's got the app.
They need about 60 people on the island to download the app, don't they?
So far, I think the news this morning, the people who track these things have said that 300,000 have been. No, that's more than people who live on there. Like 30,000 have apps been downloaded.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking 300,000. I was like,
I had too many notes there. But so far, apparently, 30,000 apparently. So that is, well, there's 80,000 households. There's about 120 plus thousand residents. So it's still a long way to go. But they were saying they needed at least 60,000 to take.
Okay, all right, cool. So, well, hopefully.
And this was about lunchtime. This was by lunchtime when they updated it. So I don't know what the latest is. But of all the people on my friends list on Facebook, I've only had one island resident who said they weren't going to do it. Nearly all the other island residents said they would.
Was it a case of I'm not letting them know where
they're
I
listening
am?
to you, Sharon? They're listening.
Well, the one who said
they're
no,
listening. They're listening.
Yeah, so he was saying, "Oh, I don't think it's worth it. Unless everyone does it, it's not worth it."
Oh, good Lord.
So, so he said no. But nearly everyone else I know has said we'd rather do it, just for the safety of everyone else, to see if we can progress this thing a bit further.
You know, I was really, really hoping that you said, like, you know, when Shaun asked, like, what happens if you say you're not feeling that well? I was hoping it was going to be like a scene in the movie where all of a sudden a SWAT team descends, repels round down your roof, crashes through the windows, go, 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 go.
Actually, I think there was an advert on TV about Gaviscon or something like that, or I think a bit like the Gaviscon advert with the old firemen where they go and put it out. Yeah. So yeah.
Oh, well, cool. The COVID SWAT police. I figure that would be pretty cool. So no, that's pretty cool. So keep us, let us know about it. Let us know. Okay, so when we come back next week, let us know how it has gone. How many people have gone?
Yes, if I ever have any pings.
But if you've had any pings,
Yeah. Well, I've only been going out once, so I was wondering if when I'm like doing the front garden this morning, I was mowing the grass. And 2 dog walkers passed me, but they didn't social distance. I didn't know they were there because I was like strimming and it was noisy. And then suddenly I was aware of this presence on my shoulder, and I was just like, oh, made me jump. And then this couple sort of walked past me without.
Yeah, there's loads. When I go out, I'm amazed how many people are actually out. And I try and stay away. Sort of, I go out fairly late in the evening for the walks, and go routes that I think no one's going to go.
Yeah.
But it really, really surprises me who's out, and loads of people don't seem to care. And I had to cross the road. The route I went the other day, I had to cross the main road, and it was like the traffic was just like zoom, 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 and I was thinking, my God, So it's crazy, really. But it was interesting.
I did think about if I had my app in my pocket, and if they had apps, would that register as a contact? Because they were certainly within 2 meters of me. But it was
working right.
It was so fleeting. I wasn't sure. Does that count as a contact or not? So I don't know how these things work, but I'm one of these people who don't always carry my phone with me, so I'm going to have to remember if I do go out to have my phone not just in my bag, which I often leave in the car, but I have to have it on my person so that it actually uses the app for its best effect.
Yeah. So the I was going to say something about, but I guess the other thing as well is that if everybody downloads the app, but then everybody stays at home, it kind of defeats the purpose. Yeah,
it won't, because I can have the app for 7 days, but if I only go out 1 day a week, then I'm not going to actually add information to that database to say, oh, look, this is how many. These are like the everyday interactions people have if they are monitoring that sort of thing. But I would be interested in the supermarket because it's a nightmare, isn't it? You just you visualize like a 2 meter bubble all around you, thinking. The 2 meters isn't just like the 2 meters in front of you. The distance of your trolley.
You need a big hula hoop skirt, like one of those massive hula hoop skirts they had in the 1950s, I reckon. Do you know what I mean? Or like
a crinoline.
I saw a thing with the in the Chinese school, they got like those helicopter hats. You know the caps?
Yeah.
They got those helicopter hats, but like the blades, the helicopter blades are like 2 meters.
2 meters long, so
They
everybody
just walk
stays
around,
away
you know?
from you.
Well, I
Like,
was thinking
you know-
like the Victorians.
you know the Jetsons, they got that little I forget what the little lad is, but he's got like those, and they were all popular in the
Elroy.
50s, weren't they? Elroy, that's him,
Yeah.
with that little propeller. That's what you want, with a massive 2 meter span.
No, to be honest with you, I went to Tesco. I went to Tesco this afternoon, and quite frankly, I would have loved something like that because there was a guy behind me who obviously felt like this social distancing stuff was stupid, was nonsense, and was just cramping his style. And it kept coking. It was one of those things where you almost want to like throw an elbow back there. You're like, get away from me! What?
We had that. It was funny. I took my mum to the doctor.
Yeah, Carrie, you took your mum to the doctors?
Yeah, it's the first time she's actually been out of the house other than the back garden for 7 weeks. And I did say to her, if I see anyone coming, I'll throw the car blanket over you. So that's what I can do.
It's like, we don't have a mask, but we got a blanket.
I can throw the whole, sort of, okay, if it's like 3 pounds of pure wool, pure Scottish wool, it's going over your head if you see anyone coming.
Well, yeah, but it is kind of one of those things. Sure enough, if nothing happens, then he's probably going to be like, yeah, well, see, nothing happened. But if something does happen, then, good Lord. Anyway, but you know how? Okay, we usually talk about Netflix and cinema, and on our website, we have this whole thing talking about, is the Netflix revolution killing cinema? And you know, one of the things that has come home to me during this lockdown is just how much cinema cannot really be replaced. It cannot be easily replaced. But in this article about Mr. Tim Richards, who is the head of View Cinemas, he ended up saying something that, even though I agree with him, it was kind of like, you know, when you think, oh, you smarmy, you smarmy so-and-so. This is the reason why I want Netflix to actually give you a bloody nose and make you up your game. Because the article ends with him saying, he says, the big screen is still how people prefer to see big releases. Can you imagine watching the new Bond film on the 27-inch Mac, he asked. And I'm like... Yeah, what is up with you? And it's things I'm like, look, I love cinema and I think that cinema has a place, but when you say things like that, even though I agree with you, and obviously I added the smarmy, I did my best smarm there, but when you things like that, this is things that make me think, you know what? I wish Netflix wins, even though I've become convinced that no, the cinema gives something that Netflix doesn't, that sitting at home just doesn't do. And there's a good interview coming up, I think, next week with a lady called Sandy who speaks about that. And while we're on that, if you are a cinephile, listen to this. If you love your cinema and if you want to answer those 4 questions, first film you saw at the cinema, last film you caught before lockdown, why you love going to the cinema, and what are you most looking forward to seeing when the cinemas reopen, get in touch with us on Netflix versus Cinema. So Netflix vs Cinema on Twitter or on Facebook, or just me, Toes in Video, so TOESIN Video on Twitter, just to say I would love to come on. We would love to find out what it is you say and have you just answer those questions, because we're getting some great stories at the moment, just collating people's love affair with cinema. Right. Shall we move forward? I think I'm going to skip a little bit about what our viewing habits have been so far, and jump ahead to an interview. Although I will say one thing: if you guys have Netflix, catch The Last Dance. The Last Dance, Shaun, I think you would love it. It's about the Chicago Bulls.
Oh right, okay, cool.
It's about Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls going for their 6th championship, and about what was going on behind the scenes. And honestly, I'm telling you, even if you do not like sports, even if you don't know a thing about basketball, the storytelling in this documentary series is masterful. The storytelling, right from the first shot, just draws you in, and before you know it, you sit down there, you've binged it, and then you're yelling and screaming at Netflix because they're only releasing two episodes a week. And you're like, what the hell's wrong with you, Netflix? Why aren't you giving to me? I want to see the rest. I want to find out how this story ends. I mean, the storytelling is so good that I'm actively avoiding going on Wikipedia to find out what happened.
Wow. Yeah. There's so it's like a series, yeah?
It's a series, yeah. I think it's going to be 10 episodes in the end. I
actually did a month free subscribe to YouTube because I've spent so much time on YouTube. Yeah, YouTube Premium. I've even done a few. But what was really, really interesting, I watched the thing you're on about basketball.
Yep.
I watched this. I mean, the thing is with the social media thing, you can just get lost in stuff because I watched, there was a 80s or 90s band. It goes, they were called Faithless. And on one of their videos, they went to, I think it was a 2005 North Korean, where they do all they call it the student thing, where they do all the big dancing and stuff. Yep. And then there was this, I saw this other thing that comes up, and it was a documentary about a basketball player, and I cannot forget his name, but he loved because the North Korean leader loved
Dennis Rodman.
Yeah, that's a boy. And he's like, they were all these things, like he had rows with people. He reckoned he was the greatest leader ever and all that. So that was quite interesting stuff. So, and I mean, Dennis he was like a major basketball. And
who was part of the team with Michael Jordan of the Chicago Bulls, and he actually features quite prominently in The Last Dance. You see, we don't just throw this together. So if you want to hear more about Dennis Rodman, Shaun, watch The Last Dance on Netflix.
Right, okay, you've got it. I'll do that. Then that's made it even more interesting. Funny, isn't it?
Yeah. So Sharon, a quick word on your viewing habits in the lockdown so far.
Well, we've been watching things like there's a couple of things a week we've watched on the television. Sewing Bee. So really sort of comfort television we've just loved. But we've actually found a series that there's 5 seasons of it, so we've been working our way through that, and that's with me and my mum, because it's just the two of us here at the moment. We've got basically the whole house to ourselves, and we've got the bigger screen television to ourselves. So it's the first time in like 2 years basically that we've actually watched anything on Netflix together. So we've actually watched a series. We started watching it. It's called Where Calls the Heart, and it's based on a Jeanette Oak book. It's set in the Canadian Rockies in the early 20th century, so it's 1910, and it's about basically like a school teacher who goes west, and it's like Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, but a school teacher in Canada. So it is your classic cozy television, and nothing. It's all like it's a U rating. Any danger is like, or someone with a gun. It's like, oh, he's got a gun. But there's no danger in it at all, and there's no
Canadian. It's Canadian, isn't it? It's Canadian. Canada's like nice.
So it's perfect for me and my mum to watch. So we've been watching twice a week. We all sit down and we'll watch 2 episodes. So we've more or less watched the whole of the first season now.
Cool.
And we're just starting on season 2. But there's 5 seasons, so we thought basically that will probably see us through to when my brother moves back, or to when the lockdown ends. By which point we'll be like, okay, we'll surrender the television and the remotes, and we'll give up the use of the main room again, because my brother we tend to let him have the big telly.
Yeah.
So that's been quite fun. So yes, it's nothing very exciting, but it's been fun. It's been entertaining. We've actually enjoyed just something that you can sit with a biscuit, like Shaun's doing now, have a cup of something, and just enjoy.
I actually reckon, I have a theory that I think, to begin with, when the lockdown first happened, there was a bit of a shock, and it took a couple of weeks, probably like a month, before everybody started getting back into some sort of normal routine. And so, because all of us, we were talking about how when it first started, we pretty much stopped watching anything.
That's it.
We pretty much
shut ourselves away. Yeah.
So we pretty much stopped watching anything. We're just kind of like, nope, forget it. It's gone. It's all over. But now I think we're beginning to get to the point where, actually, you know what? Yeah, maybe I will watch something. Maybe I will fucking watch something. But anyway, now it's time to get on to interviews. Enough of us prattling on. It's time to get other people to come in and be the star of the show. Now, I usually do the interviews on this show, but Shaun, this week you have had a go, haven't you? You've had a little go at having an interview, haven't you?
Yeah, it was a bit underhanded. It was a little bit underhanded, because the person. Wow. Anyway, yeah, okay, so, no, I did have a little go. Yeah, I did have a little go.
So tell us a little bit about what we're about to listen to.
Okay. Well, this afternoon I was having a conversation with my mum about the cinema. What the first time at the cinema? What did you see the first time? She wasn't too sure. I mean, I didn't get all. This conversation started going, and I thought, "Oh, this is going somewhere. This is going somewhere." So I slowly on my phone, surreptitiously, did the voice recorder, and then carried on. So you're talking about before this you're going to hear maybe about 5 or 6 minutes before, which I wish I'd have got. She seems to think that her first film was probably Dumbo, that she saw at the movies.
Wow.
But she went on to tell me about all the different cinemas and like my dad used to take his sister, who was like quite younger, to the cinema when he was supposed to be babysitting and stuff, and they'd look down the road and see if his mum had gone, and then they'd run out, all sorts of stuff. So there was a lot of really, really nice conversation, but I'm glad I got what I did. So I mean, it's only a small amount, but I'm really pleased I got what I got.
Okay, so here is Shaun interviewing his mum. So you are staying with your mum. You're in lockdown with your mum.
Yeah.
Is it okay to say how old your mum is?
Yes, you can do if you want. She was she is what is she now? Put me off. She's 88 years old.
Okay, so this is Shaun's 88-year-old Mama Harris, Big Mama Harris, as I like to call her. Talking, being surreptitiously interviewed for about 2 minutes by her son, Shaun.
And I had a bed and take her to pictures when he was babysitting.
Yeah?
Yeah, before I met him. When he came out of the army first, his mum used to go in the club next door and he used to babysit, but he used to take her out of her cot and put her coat on and go to pictures with her.
What was the first film? Didn't he take you to see High Noon?
It was the first film he took me to.
Yeah.
At the Odeon at the Lansdowne. Yeah. We walked along the seafront. I can't remember if we walked along the seafront before or after the film. I can't really remember that. And that must have been on the no, I think that either Saturday or the Sunday. And then the next day I met him in Boscombe under the clock at Habers. And what did we do that day? I don't know what we did that day. I think we walked through Groveley Manor to the seafront.
Did you saying you used to take Nikki to the cinema with the dummy?
Yeah.
And what happened if she lost a dummy?
When we were in Seabourne Road and Cotland. No, not in Cotlands Road. We didn't take her then. She was a bit young then, but she was probably about 2 to 3 when we used to take her, or even younger.
What happened if she...
Younger, but mind you, she did love her dummy.
Did you?
And you didn't. You used to spit it out straight away. I tried to have you one to get you to sleep and get some peace, but you didn't like dummies, but she loved her dummy.
And she would be all right in the cinema. She'd never cry or anything.
As long as she had her dummy, she was all right. You know, that if she dropped it and she started to cry, Dad had to scrabble all underneath, suck it. Put it back. Oh dear, what you do. Another film he took me to see. I think he took me to see that with Nikki, and that was not Julie Christie. It was James Dean. It was James Dean.
Giant.
Might have been.
Rebel Without a Cause.
Yeah, no, I think it might have been somebody with Julie was in with him. What are you doing, Shaun?
Recording.
Oh God.
Shaun, now I love that interview. I love some of the stories you were telling.
I did too.
I agree with you. I really wish that there's a bit of me that wishes you had just kept going on, and there's a bit of me that just wishes that your mum hadn't noticed you holding the phone. because
right.
There were bits about it that were actually quite emotional, because when she's talking about he took me to the pictures, I guess she's talking about your dad.
Yeah. Yes, she is.
He's talking about your dad, and your dad.
I think the first film they saw of my dad, and it was pretty soon after they got engaged or whatever, was High Noon with Gary Cooper, and but it was interesting. She was saying, because I mean, in I guess in those days it was there were so many cinemas and there was no television. There was only the radio. So there probably was television, but nobody really had it. So that's what they used to do quite a lot. Was the cinema was quite a lot, and she actually said, oh, your dad was an avid cinema goer. I reckon that's where you get it from. So but I mean, it's sort of nice. It was not. I thought this is really going somewhere, and I quite liked it. And I might have another go at. I mean, it was a bit of a raw interview, but I reckon I could try and do a few more people, perhaps.
I
have to grab my mum.
Yeah, I might. That's it. You should do. But I mean, I think with the older people, they're well, I know my mum wasn't too keen on on being recorded. But I'll try again. Anyway.
Well,
I'll have a word
if
with
you can, because I do think that I love doing these interviews because I love the stories that come out of it, like people's first times to the cinema, like why they go there, all that. I just love those stories. I think that they're so cool. And
I think the film though she was mentioning, I think it's Julie Harris in East of Eden. I think she was talking about
with James
East
Dean.
of Eden, was it? That probably makes sense.
I think
That
it's Julie Harris. Yeah, that's the only Julie that's in the James Dean film. Is in East of Eden. Is Julie Harris.
Yeah,
right. That'll be the one then.
It makes sense because there's not that many James Dean films to choose from, are there?
No. You have.
I actually,
find that.
How the conversation started was, me and my games, I like to say, who would you choose out of? Well, what I said, because I've joined a lot of groups. I've joined a lot of different groups, and I said, who would you choose if you were like as a boy, Charlton Heston or Richard Burton? That was the first two, and she went, "Oh, I like both of those, like both of those, but it would have to be Rock Hudson." And then we spoke a little bit about, well, wasn't he gay and blah blah blah. And some of them I said, "Oh yeah," and Miranda Scott and all stuff. But she was cool with that, which was really really good. And I asked her, what were the other ones I asked her? Oh yeah, I think I said Errol Flynn or Gary Cooper, and I went through. So I was playing that game with her about the ones she liked, but she said she really her favourite was Clark Gable.
Oh yeah,
her favourite was Clark Gable, but nowadays she doesn't think it would have been. She can't, when she looks at some of the old things. She said, I think now I probably wouldn't have liked him as much as I did back then. But it's really interesting talking to people about things like that. I'm gonna have to give it another go on. I'm gonna have to try some interviews.
Yeah, well, no, it's good, but I have to say that it was also because like your dad would be known to a lot of Bournemouth FC football fans. For sure, yeah. What did they call him? Chopper Harris, was it?
Chopper Harris, yeah. Chopper, they used to call him, yeah. Everybody, that's it. Whenever I used to play football, they used to call me Chopper. All right, Chopper. And I used to work with an old boy, bless him. Old boy, I shouldn't say that, should I? That's being, but and he just used to call me Chopper. All the time. He says, "All right, Chopper." So yeah, it's funny, isn't it? But I think it was of a generation. I think it was on a guy, Ron Harris. His name was. He was a defender for Chelsea. I remember, and he hacked everybody like they did in those days. Yeah,
and because the thing is, because I mean, if you're okay with me saying about your dad, because we lost your dad last year.
Yeah.
We lost your dad, and I mean, just the bits where she's talking, and she's honestly, I'm gonna be honest with you, Shaun. When I was listening to that, I got choked up.
Oh, thanks, Toast. Yeah,
I got really choked up when she was talking about him taking it to the cinema, and I think you could even hear it in her. I think you could hear in her voice what he meant to her. So that seriously got me choked up.
Cool.
But
thank you.
But thanks so much for that, man. And if we can get more of that would be awesome. Okay, so now we get on to our full-blown interview for this week, and that interview was with a good friend of mine, Yatish Parmar. Now, Yatish and I have known each other for oh good lord, this is when it gets really really sad when you try to think about how old it is. Over 20 years, I think. Hang on, wait. Yeah, over 20 years. Yes, we've known each other over 20 years. We met when we were doing we were.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I know. We met. I think Yatish and I we met when we were doing a year in industry in a place called Abingdon, Oxfordshire. And so I think a couple of weeks ago I put on something on Facebook saying, what was the first one you ever saw in the cinema? And he got in touch with me on WhatsApp saying, I'm not going to put this on Facebook, but the first one I ever saw was the Care Bears movie.
Yeah, I know. Care Bears. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I tell you what, that takes some admitting, doesn't it? So yeah, but I mean, he had good reason, didn't he? He had good reason to go. So.
He had good reason, which you will hear now. As I said, if you want to get in touch with us, do get in touch with us on Twitter. We would love to hear your stories about cinema. But enjoy this interview with Yatish, great friend of mine, big sort of culture vulture, and this is what he had to say. Welcome to the Netflix. Well, I keep forgetting what the name of this thing is. Cinema, that thing that doesn't exist anymore. Welcome to the Netflix versus cinema interview. How are things going with you in the lockdown, man?
Yeah, they're going fine, keeping busy,
Yep.
Just cleaning, tidying, exercising, working, and catching up on bits and pieces.
Yep. And okay, now, so if we're gonna, so we're gonna be talking mostly about film. Now, you seem to have this real thing about well, I know with your kids that you're always sort of like trying to educate them about good stuff. So there's been a lot of film watching going on, hasn't there been, in the lockdown?
There has been some, yeah. We've been taking advantage of Netflix's Studio Ghibli season.
Oh yeah.
So we've been watching a lot of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's been quite interesting with them.
Yeah, I was talking about the Studio Ghibli thing on the last episode of the podcast. I was actually gave my ratings of the ones I'd seen so far.
Yeah. I think we had a bit of cross conversation about that.
Yes.
So
yes, we did. So as I said, what we're doing over the period of this lockdown thing, because obviously our show is called Netflix versus Cinema, and there is no cinema, so it's kind of like destroyed the show, because we're kind of like we're like okay, so we can all just say that Netflix has won for the remaining of 2020. Netflix has won. And if that's the case, what the heck are we going to do on a show called Netflix versus Cinema? So what we decided to do is to have like a bit of a celebration of cinema and what that means. I put this up on my Facebook, and I asked people what was the first film they ever saw at the cinema. You replied with something that I think people who know you
is the movie.
yeah, Care Bears the movie. And people who know you know that this is a man who is currently making sure that he's introducing all of his children to the classic hip hop rap stuff from the early 80s and all that kind of stuff. And so Care Bears the movie, as the first one you say in cinema, doesn't quite work. But you do have an excuse for why Care Bears the movie was the first one you ever saw in the cinema. Isn't that right?
Massive excuse. If we obviously remember back to the glory days of youth centres and perhaps funding for children's services, and so summer play schemes where your parents would just dump you for like a month in the summer holidays, and they had a trip to the cinema. I remember going to Harrow Cinema. There were like 3 cinemas in Harrow, so it was the one next to the model shop. There's like a model shop next door.
Yeah.
We went to go watch Care Bears the movie. So yeah.
So what? Okay, what do you remember about that first trip?
To be honest, the only thing I remember about the trip is the bad guy in it. His eyes used to go red or something like that. I remember walking out of the cinema and being absolutely blinded by the bright sunshine. That's like my standout memory of my first trip to the cinema.
Oh, all right, cool. So on this thing, we have different stories. Like Shaun, for instance, the first film that she went to see, the other host of the podcast, the first one Shaun went to see in the cinema was Star Wars. The first film Shaun went to see in the cinema was, I think it was The Warlord with Charlton Heston, and they both talk about how that sort of reignited this love of cinema from them. That's where their obsession with cinema started. What effect did Care Bears the movie have on you?
Zilch, man. Nothing. Well, I would say though, I mean, like, you're talking about Star Wars and whatnot. I made a point of taking all my kids to go watch the recent 3 Star Wars movies.
Yep.
So the older one he's seen all 3 of them in the cinema.
Yep.
And the little one, she just turned 5 last year.
Yep.
And so we took her in to go watch the last, the
Rise of Skywalker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just at least when they grow up, and she'll be able to say that she at least went to see one in the cinema.
Yeah,
and
for better
I'm
or
a
for
Star
worse.
Trek fan. Yeah, I'm a Trekkie. She's a Trekkie as well at the age of 5. But for better or for worse, they have to be able to say that they saw at least one of the Star Wars films in the cinema.
Well, yes. Yeah, well, you know very well that you've made a point of making sure that your children know their stuff, especially when it comes to sci-fi.
I try.
Because with you're a little bit of a culture vulture, aren't you? I mean, we've known each other for years. I mean, I don't want to start thinking about how many years it is now, because that's a little bit sad.
We're feeling old now. You're talking
about feeling old. You know this Joe Wicks workout that everybody's doing, like PE with Joe Wicks, right?
Yeah.
Which is supposed to be primarily for kids, like a kids PE lesson.
Yeah.
I did it on Monday. I couldn't move till like Friday, right?
I have to be honest, Tosin, when we used to live together all the many years ago, and you took me for a run and I couldn't even run to the end of the road and get back, I have been motivated, to get on top of my physical fitness. So, to be honest, I have actually been exercising quite a bit. And my kids have been doing a lot of YouTube clips, exercise videos and stuff as well.
Oh yeah.
So they quite like those choose your side ones, target the little kids, and they have like cartoon characters on either side. And they've got to choose one side or the other side to do the exercise.
All
so
right.
They quite enjoy that.
Oh right.
Yeah, and video games characters and stuff like that.
Oh, you see
So
that?
yeah, it's good.
That is the joy of having kids. I don't even know what those things are. I can figure out what you're saying by what you're saying, but But besides that, I'm like, I've never heard of those. Those sound like fun. Maybe I'll try that. Maybe those will take me out of commission for a week, like Joe Wicks did.
Yeah.
So we're talking about you are like as I was saying, a bit of a culture vulture. You're into your books. You're into your books. You're into your music, as we said. Like whenever I go to your house, you have like all your vinyl out there, probably in chronological order. But knowing you probably have them in order of relevance or something like that.
Yeah, they're organized by genre. The vinyl's organized by genre.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, so with that, with all the sort of like culture you devour, because one of the questions we're asking people is like, what do you think about the cinema? But for you, I'm going to ask you, where do you rank the cinema when it comes in like, the importance of all these different sort of like bits of culture?
Yeah, I mean, I think we had when you posted that something on Facebook the other day about TV series and how many out of the 100 have you seen? And I was like, I got a bit snobby about that. And I was like, nah, actually, that's just like trying to do this high culture, low culture kind of division, which really shouldn't exist because art is art primarily, isn't it? So yeah, I do rank the cinema quite highly in it. I personally don't enjoy going to the cinema that much because I can't stand the sound of people eating while I'm trying to watch a film. It drives me bonkers. But obviously, I got great memories of going to the cinema to watch particular films, So, I mean, things like going to watch a digital remastering of the 36th Chamber of Shaolin at the BFI. That's one that stands out.
Oh, yeah.
That was a great reliving of the childhood in a great setting,
Yeah.
So yeah, I do rate the cinema quite highly.
All right. So what do you think is so great about the cinema? Because I know for me at the moment, not being able to go to the cinema, and I go like almost every week. Not being able to go to the cinema, I've started realizing, oh my God, there is a difference. Even if you have a great film at home, there's a difference between that and the cinema. So what do you think is so great about the whole cinema, going there, watching experience thing?
I would say that for me, going to the cinema is about, what you do after the film. Okay. Because I tend to find that when I used to go into, obviously living in London, going into town to go watch films in like the Curzon, Soho, or wherever it is, you go into town, and then it's that walk to the tube station and the tube ride back where you have time to reflect about what you've been watching and talk about it, and which I find really valuable. Whereas if I just go to a local cinema to go watch something, jump in the car on the way back, during the drive back and whatnot, and I don't really seem to enjoy the experience as much. So, for me, it's about really going to watch a film with someone and then having the time to think about it and digest it and talk about it afterwards.
Oh, that's pretty cool, actually. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't really think about that because nowadays I just drive to the cinema. So it's like because nowadays I just drive, so it's just jump down there, and a lot of the films I see nowadays I see by myself because just because of life and stuff and trying to do this podcast, and if I didn't go see it by myself, there's just loads of films I just wouldn't see. But I think it's like also now with lockdown, isn't it, when people talk about social distancing, and I would argue that I don't feel very socially distant to anybody because of Twitter, WhatsApp, and all these kinds of things, and I feel very socially close to people but physically distant. And possibly I would argue that coming out of the cinema and having that time, because I mean, you could come out of the cinema and be engaged in a virtual conversation with somebody about what you've watched. And
I know
that's
that
true.
that's the kind of thing that you would be doing. I know that's the kind of thing that we have engaged in as well. We've got, you've seen a film, I've seen something different, and we're just bouncing off each other digitally, But for me, there's also something about coming out of the cinema and having that physical proximity and a physical conversation with someone about what you've just had a shared experience about. In that sense, it is similar but different to going to the theater. In that sense, where you're going to the theater, a live experience. It should be some kind of like cathartic experience, and it changes you in some way. For me, probably having that conversation after the film, reflecting on it. learning from it
is the more
and seeing
important bit.
is more. Yeah.
So
I mean, we
does,
consume. Yeah.
sorry,
Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, so for you, does that mean that it doesn't really matter if what you see is good or bad? What matters is whether you get to it gets to inspire that kind of discussion.
All right.
As well.
I last night, having never seen it and being an absolute fan of the book, having read it like 4 or 5 times and listened to the audiobook about 60 times,
Oh yeah,
is I watched Dune last night, the 1984 version
or
or whatever.
the David Lynch
It was
version of Zoo.
appalling. It was terrible, man. Oh my God, it was horrible. I watched it. I was like, I gotta have a trash 80s sci-fi night. I gotta watch that. I gotta watch Flash Gordon. I gotta watch The Last Starfighter, like back to back. You know, Flash Gordon was pretty good, and The Last Starfighter is an awesome film. But like, I gotta have Dune in there again and just watch it with the boys. Like, it's gonna be an absolutely appalling experience together. Like, it was terrible, man. Yeah.
Okay, so we've spoken about Dune before. You sent me the audiobook for Dune and everything, and and also we spoke about Star Wars as well. I mean, we're sort of like going in between all the different questions I was going to ask because there were focuses I was going to ask you.
Okay.
So we've spoken about this before. You've told me about how much essentially whenever we end up talking about Star Wars, you end up talking about Dune. And going like, oh, for goodness sake, you want to read something? Star Wars is rubbish. You want to see something good? Read Dune. Yeah, have Dune. That's where he stole all his best ideas from. Desert Planet. Blah blah. All that. You keep talking about that. So I know how much sort of like you hold Dune in esteem, and the fact that I know that there's a lot of people who are fans of Dune, who can't stand the fact that the sort of number one thing that a lot of people when they hear Dune is they're going to be thinking about the 1980s David Lynch movie, which I think features Sting in a nappy or something like that.
Yeah. Sting in a nappy.
Yeah, Sting in a nappy. So they talk. But one of the questions I was going to ask you is, when the cinemas open again, what are you most looking forward to watching? And we know
because I mean, like Blade Runner 2049 was awesome. Like Blade Runner segues into Blade Runner 2049 so neatly and tidy. You know, the vision behind it is absolutely awesome. The writing was brilliant.
I
would say that. Yeah,
I was going to say, I think with Blade Runner 2049, I thought for me the biggest achievement of that film is that it felt like the same world as the first Blade Runner film, just 30 years on, and.
Yeah,
and for me that was a massive achievement. So I guess you were going to say something about the director.
Yeah, so I think and I know they got like the guy in charge of photography is the same and whatnot. So and you know, like they got the same camera crew and all of that. So I'm really looking forward to that because one of the problems with that 80s version of Dune, the David Lynch version that I watched yesterday, is that there's just so much over-reliance on having the characters just whispering their inner thoughts over the top of what's taking place as a substitute for,
actual visual storytelling.
Yeah, and as a substitute for thinking carefully about what dialogue could go in to replace that kind of aspect. So, I'm looking forward to, you know, these guys sitting down, thinking about, you know, the visual aspect of it and doing a bit of decent writing on it.
Well, I mean, okay, we've had this discussion, and I'm repeating myself, but hopefully some people who are listening to this haven't heard me say this, that everything I've ever heard about Dune and everything you've told me about Dune is like, whenever I say, okay, cool, why should I read this book? What's the story about? And people start telling you this story that keeps having all these added elements to it. And I keep going like, okay, oh, really? What's that? Why? What does that mean? Bene Gesserit, how do you spell that? And all that. And the story just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And I have, even without reading the book, I've always thought this thing sounds like it would be better as a high budget TV series because you have time to build the world and go into it. And so making it into a film, I've been worried about for a while. But as you say, the people who are making this film, I think Denis Villeneuve, him alone he's enough to sort of give me, okay, of all the people I can think of, he is going to give you the best chance of making this thing work. Because because all his films are
Yeah.
really, really well thought out, and the guy puts so much into, like, I love Arrival. I love the film Arrival. I think what he did with Blade Runner 2049, I was like, well, sheesh, I didn't think that was possible. I really didn't think that was possible to actually make something that made sense in the light of the first one, and doesn't try and be its own thing too much, and it doesn't try and ape the original too much, so you don't end up resenting it for messing up the first one. It just ends up being like, no, it's part of the same world, which I think is something that a lot of people have tried in the past and have messed it up. So I think Dune, and also the fact that he has said it himself, that he said this is too much story for one film. So he'd always had it in mind that he was going to make two. So
yeah, I think we spoke a bit about this as well, is about having, which film was it? Is it Superman 1 and 2? They kind of like filmed
them back to
both
back,
of the films together, yeah. And I think this is kind of like the same thing, that not letting studio execs have control over a film, saying that, or the financial department here, in a sense, having control over what happens with it, in terms of they just film the whole thing and then, you know, edit the first one, get it out, and then edit the second one and get it out.
Yeah, they've done it
so
a
that they
couple
have
of
that
times.
continuity.
Yeah, they've done it a couple of times.
I think like
it worked for Lord of the Rings. It worked for Avengers Endgame and Infinity War. It didn't work so well for the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, but never mind.
Disney. Yeah.
Don't get me started. Don't get me started.
Yes.
Don't get me started on that money hungry capitalist big conglomerates. What's the word I'm looking for? Big conglomerates of factory that creates all this stuff that I really, really love.
Yeah, culture and creative industries, isn't it? I mean, like, it's got to be done to feed someone at the end of the day.
It has to be done.
But, you know, But yeah, no, I mean, I'm really looking forward to watching Dune in the cinema. So, you know, hopefully we can get some babysitting, and I'll take Portia to go watch it. She fell asleep last night watching this. She was like, "What the hell is this?" And just gave up. She gave up on it. So, you know, I'll be looking forward to going to watch this remake
of Dune. But I also have to say one thing. Okay, I've listened to a little bit of the book, and I do feel like they have nailed a lot of their casting. The cast the cast in Dune, I look at them and I go, yep. You'd work. Yes, Charlotte Rampling as the Mother Superior, that works. I mean, it's kind of like, so I feel like they have such good people with it. They have such a good director, and I'm just hoping that this. So I'm hopeful for Dune, and I'm hopeful for something that I can't see how it would work, but I'm hopeful for them to sort of blow my mind with that. Right. Okay, so we have been through the first film you saw at the cinema. We have been through the what you love about going to the cinema, why you think cinema is important, if we put it that way. We have been through what you are most looking forward to seeing when the cinemas reopen. And the other question that we're asking people is, what was the final film you managed to catch at the cinema before the lockdown happened?
Final. I thought, right. I thought it was going to be what was the final film I saw before lockdown. But the final film at the cinema was Rise of Skywalker at Christmas. Took the kids to go watch that.
Okay.
And it was trash, man. Trash. It was appalling.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to go into all the reasons why it's bad.
Yeah. Well,
we definitely don't.
It's anybody who's listened to the podcast regularly would have heard Shaun and I talking, because when Shaun and I saw it when the week it was released. I think we recorded the podcast on the Thursday, so I think I had just seen it that day. I had seen the film that day, and Shaun and I were going to talk about it. Sharon hadn't seen it yet, so Sharon left the room and put her headphones on for the entire time while we were talking, which I think was a good idea, because after hearing Shaun and I speak about the film, I don't think anybody would have wanted to watch it. So
no,
because
I don't think anybody should have gone to see it at all. Like, I mean, the sales, the box office figures speak for themselves, isn't it? Like, for a Star Wars film to do so badly, you know, in this period of 4 weeks at the cinema, just goes to show how terrible the film was.
I couldn't even put into words how disappointed I was at that film.
Yeah, I think I've said it. I've summarized it. Like they had 9 films. They've done 2.5 decent films. Good films. 2.5 good films. Like 2 alright films, and then the rest of them are rubbish.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah.
So, yeah,
I'd agree with that. So I know, but honestly, man, because I went to see it. I actually remember I went to see it at the midnight showing, and I had I had a business networking meeting the next morning at 6:00. So I went to the business. I had about probably 2-3 hours sleep. Then went straight to this business networking meeting. People were like, "Oh, you went to see the film last night. What did you think?" And I was just kind of like, "Oh, good man." I was just so disappointed. It was just so disappointing, and it seriously it made me. It's kind of like there's one of these moments where it made me think, "Hang on, has J.J. Abrams ever been any good?" Because I just couldn't believe how much they'd messed Star Wars up. I just couldn't believe how much they messed that film up, and it made me sort of like it gave me sort of a dark time of the soul where I had to sort of go back and look at the rest of his output and go, is that any good? Does this guy just keep recycling the same stuff and reheating it and giving it to us as a? I mean, that's a film that I know. I'm all for people having different points of view. But when people tell me that they like that film, I'm still kind of like, what the hell are you on about? Or what are you smoking?
Are you sure you're a part of my social network here?
Yeah. I'm just kind of like, seriously. I'm like, okay, seriously, honestly, tell me why? Why? What do you like about this? Because I think it's, yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember. There was a tagline that came out from one of the people at the studio, and it was something like, "This is classic Lucas." Like the pace is just used to keep everything moving. When basically the subtext was there's no story, so we just bang through everything as quickly as possible, just so that you don't notice that there's no story. And I was just like, I just saw it, and I was like, what the hell, man? I mean, and the thing is, it's so expensive to go watch it.
Especially when you're taking your kids along as well. Yeah.
It's
funny. The funny thing is that I know a lot of people who have kids. The Rise of Skywalker is the last thing they went to see at the cinema, and I feel so sorry for them. I mean, that's because one of the other podcasts we used to do, one called "They Don't Make Them Like They Used To." We would interview people who were in their 50s, and they'll say, "Oh, I haven't been to the cinema since the 80s or something like that," and I feel like The Rise of Skywalker is the kind of film where and usually the story is like they'll say something like, "Oh, I went to see this one film and it just turned me off cinema and I thought, oh, forget it, I'm not going to watch anything anymore." And I feel The Rise of Skywalker is the kind of film that could do that for a whole new generation who just think, I was so pumped up and then I saw that and now I'm not going to the cinema.
Yeah. It just, you'll be scarred, and it scarred a whole generation.
Yeah. It just
basically,
it's one of those things that you watch it and you go, well, thank God for Marvel.
Yeah, but we could argue the same thing about Marvel, isn't it? The execs are just basically making safe choices that they know are going to generate income for them, and they're very carefully using the hype to justify the decisions that they're making.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, like one Batman movie does as much at the cinema as generally as like an entire year's worth of Marvel output. So, I mean, you could argue the importance of direction, music. I mean, tell me one song you remember from a Marvel movie. Oh, nothing. Nothing from the score.
Sorry, no.
That stands out.
Alan Silvestri's Avengers Endgame, Avengers theme tune. I'm sorry, but Alan Silvestri's Avengers theme tune is awesome. It is.
Yeah.
It is awesome. I mean, that is something that at the beginning of Marvel, like for instance, you can't really think about Iron Man doesn't really have a theme. Captain America doesn't really have a theme. All those guys, they don't really have, like, the music doesn't mean anything apart from the fact that they used AC/DC for the initial Iron Man movies. So that I agree with. But by the time they got to Avengers, and by the time, like, I remember, like, by the time they got to Avengers Age of Ultron, there's this bit where the helicarrier shows up in Sokovia to sort of, like, save some people. And once that music kicks in, I'm like, yes! And by the time they got to, by the time you get to Endgame, even just that, even the trailer for Endgame and the bit where the letters are coming on the screen and it actually gives you the title of the film and the Avengers theme tune kicks in there. I'm just kind of like, I am so pumped right now. And I know a lot of people.
It took 13 years and 20 movies, man.
Oh yeah, I agree with that. And I think that's because the Marvel Cinematic Universe is essentially watching people figure it out as they went along, but they made sure that, like, you know, I think they made sure that every single step they took, they made sure that it was the best step that they were allowed to make, if you get what I mean. Mm-hmm. So I agree with you that there is definitely, because they got bought over by Disney pretty early on. I think it was probably around about Thor: The Dark World that Disney came in and bought Marvel. So obviously they knew that there has to be that whole thing where there's going to be somebody in the suits. The suits are going to be sitting down there going, all right, yeah, this thing has to make money. This is what projections are and all that. And so they were, but I think that they made some really, really good decisions. Almost every single time I'm like, okay, there's two ways this thing could go. They could either do that, which is going to be a terrible, terrible decision that I've thought all the way from the comics. I'm like, you could do that and that would be a terrible decision because it didn't even work in the comics. And then they make the decision. I'm like, okay, yes, I like that. That is the right decision. So I think that the balancing act that they've managed to pull off, where there might have been things that could have been more, or could have been braver that they could have done. There might have been things that could have been a bit more out there that they could have done. But I think the balancing act that they've managed to do between making some bold choices and keeping the money men happy is mental. It's absolutely mental. So I know people have issues with it, and I understand some of the issues, but quite frankly, I am in awe of what they have managed to pull off in Marvel Studios. I am in absolute awe.
Well, you know, we can look at some of the most recent DC output, and we can probably look at the balance of it and just say that, yeah, you know, the evidence bears out what you're saying, definitely.
Oh, good Lord, the DC.
Yeah. Saying which, though, like Titans on Netflix, I have enjoyed. The first series was a bit slow getting started. I binged the second series over like 2 nights, I think.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah. Like I enjoyed Titans. I would say.
Well, you see now, and this is when you talk about being snobbish. This is where I get snobbish, because I'm like, I don't understand why they made Titans. Why did we need the live action Titans? We had 2 awesome cartoon series. We had Teen Titans and Teen Titans Go. Those things rock. Why do you have to go and make it dark and make it all human? That sucks. And so I will admit straight up that I'm snobbish about that thing, and maybe one day I'll watch Titans, but at the moment I'm just kind of like, you have not justified your existence to me.
Yeah. Well, you know, I watch Teen Titans with the kids, and then when they go to bed, I watch Titans. So it worked for me, man. It worked for me.
Oh, okay.
You know,
but have you seen the Teen Titans movie? The Teen Titans Go to the Movies film?
No, I don't think we've seen that one.
Oh, dude, you need to see that. You need to see that. It is the funniest satire of superhero movies that I have seen in the like honestly, man, just watch it. Some of the things that they do in the film, you're kind of like, I can't believe they're doing this. Even though, like,
is it funnier than Old Man Hulk that I sent you the other day?
Oh,
from the new Avengers or whatever it was. Old Man Hulk.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it is funnier. It is funnier than that.
Cool.
Like it's kind of.
I'll look that one up.
Let me put it this way: when you have a DC property, so obviously Teen Titans is a DC property. And you have a DC property that's taking the piss out of Batman versus Superman within it. You know that, oh my God, I don't think anybody was watching that when they were making this thing. It's awesome.
Well, Batman versus Superman was the biggest crock of... I was off. I was off sick, I think, that week. A couple of days I had off work. I wasn't feeling well, and I was like, oh, kids are at school. Batman versus Superman is in. Let me watch it. I sat there and watched the whole thing just as a level of torture to myself. I was like, it can't actually get any worse than this. I watched the whole thing and I was like, how did anyone even allow this thing to be released? Like, it shouldn't even gone. It shouldn't even been straight to DVD or streaming. It should just gone in the dustbin. But
You see, now you're sounding a bit like me, and my wife has heard me complain about this film over and over again. Someone that she's like, "Oh, what is wrong with you, man?" It's like people were trying. I'm like, I'm not sure they were, because that film, I'm like, wait, somebody had to write it, then somebody had to sort of like location scout, then you had a director, then you had an editor, then you had executives, and it had to go through all these different stages, and that is what you released.
Yeah, but you know what's happened with that is that like it's going to be one of them ones where someone wrote a story, execs didn't like it, and so then they got another person to do edits on the story, and then they got another person to do edits on the edits and edits on the edits, like that. So you end up with like about 12 people having worked on the script, of which only one person who originally wrote it actually receives any actual credits.
Yeah.
And you end up with a story that shouldn't have been made. So
yeah, but I mean,
sad days.
But the problem with me is, okay, there is one moment in Batman vs Superman which typifies the entire film, and it's the Martha moment. And I just don't understand. No matter how many drafts of the script you've had, no matter how many people have tinkered with this thing, no matter how many too many cooks problems you have, how does nobody look at that moment of the 12, 50, 100 people who were involved in making this thing? How do you not look at that moment and go, that is stupid? And the whole film builds up to that point, and you're like, that is dumb. It is so dumb. I don't understand how that happens. Never mind. Okay, yeah, you're getting me. Anyway, also, thank you very much for coming on to the Netflix vs Cinema podcast today. I'm gonna go away and stew about Batman vs Superman for like an hour now.
Yeah, you get some. You use that excess emotional energy to like bang through another Joe Wicks workout off YouTube or something.
Oh, I did one this morning. I'm expecting to pay for it in like tomorrow. I'm expecting to. Oh, good.
Yeah.
Batman vs Superman. Oh, God. Okay. Anyway, I'm gonna go away, and I know. Oh God, you got me started, man. It's all right. I know. Okay, I know. I owe you some Star Wars watching. I still haven't seen Discovery season 2. Haven't seen any of Picard. And
Star Trek, yeah,
Star Trek, yeah.
I watched a bit of Picard. I have my opinions about Picard. So I think we need to go back to Deep Space Nine. I think that was like
that was the high point
for Star Trek. Yeah, Discovery. I mean, a lot of people were slaying Discovery. I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoyed season 1.
I think Discovery does. Sorry,
I enjoyed season 1.
Yeah. I think Discovery does a lot of what Deep Space Nine did, which was,
make the world more adult.
Yeah, there's that. There's more shades of grey, and a lot of characters that wouldn't have got time.
Yeah.
In a traditional Star Trek setting, basically because they're not like white men.
Yep.
Deep Space Nine and Discovery gives them those roles, and also, we got, people who aren't necessarily heterosexual, et cetera. They're allowed to flourish as characters.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway.
Anyway. Cool. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on. Right. Thank you so much for all you've said. No. And here's hoping that at some point they reopen cinemas.
Yeah,
and that they're still, and that they're, and they're still actually there when we finally get to reopen them.
Yeah. All right,
cool, man.
Take care.
Chat later.
Right. You too. All right. Bye.
Bye. All right. So, Yatish finishes.
Yep.
Yatish finishes. So, Shaun, Sharon, that was Yatish. What did you think?
Yeah, he was sick.
The Care Bear movie. He didn't choose that film. I mean, when you're a Totiwi thing, you get taken to the film that your parents think is the most appropriate. They're not thinking of your future cultural life. They're thinking of how can I entertain this child. So, I think he's as far as I'm concerned, he gets a pass with the Care Bear man.
Yeah, I'll give him a pass. Yeah, I'm happy. It sounded there's loads of stuff there I could talk about. But, I mean, there's so much. I mean, I mean, maybe we could just all dive in. But interesting that he said he's a real Trekkie fan.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, he really likes his Trek, and he likes Deep Space Nine, which probably I would say out of all the series, I used to really, really enjoy Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
So I'm with him there. I have actually watched all of Picard. So
Oh yeah.
I watched. Yeah, that's one of the few things that I have watched. For me, I thought that was a little bit. It was a little bit hot and cold from a personal point of view. Some episodes are okay. You had the old, sort of some of the old characters like his old number 2, and some of through different characters pop up that from the past. So I mean, it was all right. It was all right. It wasn't out of this world, and some episodes were a lot better than others. But yeah, so I'm with him on the Star Trek stuff, Deep Space Nine, and about my favourite all time.
As well, didn't he?
Pardon?
He liked Discovery as well, which is
now
the Netflix one, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
For me,
I get muddled up, but there's so many Star Trek. I'm sorry, Star Trek.
I made the same,
series
I made the same
Yeah.
I
mistake.
get a bit muddled with them because what was the one with Kate Mulligan? What was that one?
Kate Mulgrew.
Mulgrew.
That was Voyager. The one
Voyager.
that everybody says was rubbish, apart from I think they rated just slightly above Enterprise.
See, I didn't hate. I watched them all, so I've watched them all. I haven't seen Picard because it's. Yeah, I just wasn't in the mood.
Yeah.
So I've watched the others, and I've watched all of Discovery.
now see, Voyager. It's funny. Out of the whole Star Trek canon, out of the whole Star Trek, everything I've seen of Star Trek, including the movies.
Yep.
There's Voyager. There's a 2-parter. It's called Scorpion, and it's where they get 7 of 9, and they meet the Borg.
Yeah.
And like the Borg have gone into fluidic space and found this race that they can't assimilate, and it's just. And for me, and I would watch that again and again and again. It's a 2-parter, Scorpion, and that's a Voyager. But that is my favourite Star Trek moment. So for your mate there, that's if he could get back and let me know what he thinks of that episode.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Yatish, you hear that? You hear that? Sean has said he wants to know what you think about that episode of Voyager, because I know Yatish is the kind of person who for a weekend will he has 2 kids and he will sit them down, and they will watch a box set of Star Trek. So I think his kids are they've probably seen every single episode, definitely of the original series, probably of the Next Generation, and it's he takes them through that, and he has been a long time hater of Star Wars. he does not rate Star Wars much. And obviously, as Shaun, you mentioned as well that somehow we started talking and we got around to Batman versus Superman again.
Yeah.
And once again, I found myself getting embarrassed at how annoyed I was getting. Yeah. I'm like, why am I so annoyed about this film? It's just a film. But I'm really annoyed about it. I don't understand why. But all right, cool. So Yatish, thank you so much for coming onto the show. And as I said,
I did want to comment about his Dune. I know he's got his Dune obsession because
yes.
Reading the books, and he's watched he's watched recently the film, from the 1980s. But there is.
I think in preparation for the interview, he specifically went and watched David Lynch's Dune.
Yeah. They did do a television series of a sort of quite high-end television series of the Dune book and Children of Dune, and I think it had James McAvoy as, I don't know if he was one of the children of Dune or whether he was Paul Atreides, but he certainly featured in it quite prominently. And it was like a Sky One production.
It was a sci-fi production.
But I remember it being quite high values. But I have to say, without much embarrassment, I actually really like the film Dune. I like the fact that it's completely out there, and that there's nothing, that it is not sane. It's not a sane adaptation of the book. It's completely. But I like the whole why, because she is the Kwisatz Haderach. It's nonsense. But I actually really like it because it is crazy. It's just a crazy, mad vision of. Yeah. The way he's talking about that, the whispering that pain is the mind killer, and when your flesh is dissolving from your, and all that, and I just thought, to me, it's just crazy, but I like it.
Yeah, I have to say I concur with Sharon on that one, because I thought it was pretty good. But then I'm a bit of a Lynch fan, but I just really liked it with the, melange and
melange.
Melange, the spice. And yeah, so I got to say, you know, I thought it was okay. I thought it was an okay adaptation. Mind you, I haven't read the book, so I don't know. Sharon, you're into books.
Again,
Have you read?
I haven't read the books. It's one of those books. My brother was a huge fan, and because he was a fan, I wasn't. So I didn't read them.
Good excuse. Good excuse.
It took me 20 years to read Lord of the Rings because he was obsessed with Lord of the Rings. I went nowhere near. So I didn't read Lord of the Rings until, you know, only about sort of 10 years ago I read Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
So we had that thing. If he was really into it, I was like, as a point of principle, I wasn't going to touch him.
Okay, Sharon. Okay, for you, we have some good brother-sister stories around the cinema coming up on future interviews. we have some good brother-sister stories. I will not spoil them, but I think Karen Bagshaw, who I should be speaking to next week after the bank holiday, has one that she just put like a sentence about it and I was like, oh, this is a cracker. I so want to hear about this. But brother-sister stories. And Sandy, who I interviewed yesterday, she has a whole thing about how the first film that she went to see at the cinema was tied in with what her brother was allowed to see. So I hear you on that. And also Karen, because she put up on Facebook, she said something along the lines of because Homeland finished last week, the TV series Homeland finished last week, and she put something on there saying, "Oh my God, this is a great thing. I can't believe they brought it to an end. I'm so essentially she really, really likes Homeland." And she was like, "For anybody who gave up on it in season 2, you missed out." And that's exactly when I gave up on Homeland. I gave up on Homeland in season 2. Something happened. I went, okay, this is getting silly, and I haven't watched it in like 4 years.
Yeah, go on. Sorry,
yeah, so essentially, I don't know why I let myself in, but this is what I do for the podcast. All right, I said you come up and let me interview for the podcast, and I promise to catch up with Homeland, which is 8 seasons, 96 episodes. I promised to catch up on Homeland, and because she says that she wonders, because when she was watching it, because Homeland, it followed world affairs quite closely, she says that it was great actually watching it and as things were happening, and she wonders whether there will be any difference if you watch it afterwards. So I said, I'll tell you what, I'll be your guinea pig. I'll watch it afterwards and I'll report back to you on each season. You come on the podcast and I'll interview you. And now I'm wondering, oh my God, what have I done?
Could I ask you guys a favour?
Yep.
One of the groups I joined was a Wild Bunch film fan page. Yep. And I put a post on there which is just, oh man, it's lit up. It's caused so much controversy because, you know, there's been talk of a remake, isn't there, of Mel Gibson Lord. Doing a remake. But the post I put on there was, so what contemporary actors would play the parts of, and they're like, you just see these comments. So if you could go over to the page and like my post, I put a few of the actors that I thought I would. That'd be brilliant. So yeah.
Okay. So this is what the Wild Bunch, movie.
Bunch, yeah.
Okay. So if you're listening to this, you want to go over there, you want to like Shaun's post, or if you want to go on there and you want to fight.
Yes, that's it. I mean, me and remakes, but it was just funny that I put it on there, and it was like there was getting comments like, "Oh, they should have Pike from Dad's Army," and all stuff. There was a funny, really. It's quite funny. It's quite good. So yeah, so it's caused a bit of. In fact, I'm quite enjoying going on these film groups. I've joined about 4 of them. So that's like in the day, I'm like getting all these pings, and I'm like a 70s movie one and incredibly strange films. And
I'll tell you what, you can post this episode and tell them that they've made it into the podcast.
I'll do that. I will. Okay, that's cool. All right then.
Okay, cool. And now, so we get to the part of the show where we tackle one of the questions that we ask our interviewers ourselves. So far, we've spoken about the first films that we all saw at the cinema. We've spoken about the last film we caught before the lockdown happened. And now I think we're going to talk about, what are you most looking forward to seeing when the cinemas reopen? So which film are you thinking, oh, this is a film I was looking forward to this year, and it got snatched away from me?
For me, probably it would be, I would quite looking forward to Mulan, believe it or not. I would really like to see Mulan. I think that, so that's what, there's quite a few probably, but Mulan, definitely would like to see Mulan. That's the only one I can really think of right now.
Sharon?
So
by strange coincidence, that was what I was thinking, Mulan, because I think where that was close, I think that was due to be released imminently.
Yeah,
I think it was like the next week or something.
It was on the horizon, so I think that was the one that it felt like it had been snatched away. All the others were much further down the line. And I must admit, apart from the Bond film, which I can't, and I'm not a huge Bond fan, but I tend to have gone to have seen them. I can't think of many that I saw were coming that I thought, oh, that'd be good, because we tended to do it like a week by week basis, thinking, okay, what's that this week? Oh, we'll go and see that. And I didn't ever really look that far ahead. So I was aware of Mulan, and I'm trying to think of the trailers that came on. Just because, you know, when you go to the cinema quite a lot, you see the same trailers every week. And I'm trying to think which ones I went, oh, that looked quite good.
I think the Bond film, because there's one shot, I know you've seen the Bond trailer, there's one shot in the trailer that is absolutely out of this world. And I just really want to see if that is all that they have in the film. Like, if that's the one shot that they go, yay, get them in, and now the rest of the film is like stodgy as anything.
Yeah.
But I want to see that. I think not so much out of excitement as it is curiosity. I want to see how they're going to do this thing. I want to see how they're going to end Daniel Craig's run, and I want to see whether all the hype, because they always hype it up and they always say, yes, I think this is the best way to end it, and I think we've done it now. I think we've brought it full circle. I want to see if it actually works, because I feel a little bit like, as a Bond, Daniel Craig might have had a bit too much control over the films, and I'm not sure that was always a good thing. But it's so I want to see how that goes. But being a total caricature of myself, I really want to see what Marvel are going to do to follow up after Endgame, because I thought it was really interesting to see when they said, all right, we've got and they said that they had Endgame, and then after that everyone was, what are they going to do next? And they went, well, we're going to do Black Widow, which is supposed to be
they bounced back, because I wasn't thrilled about Black Widow, because she wasn't my most favourite character. And I think sometimes it's like with the whole sisterhood thing, it's like saying, well, it's a woman character, so get in there. And I'm just like, but I didn't like her the best. So I feel like I'm proud that I have to go and watch it. And I know my friend Gemma, who I go to the cinema with quite a lot, she was really looking forward to the next Wonder Woman film.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
So if you do like a compare and contrast between how the way DC handles their like female characters, how Marvel handles their female characters, I think DC have got a slightly edge on it. The way they handled like Harley Quinn and how they handled women. Whereas Marvel, they've always sort of treated them throughout all the other films. They're a bit like also characters. It's just like, oh, and by the way, look at all these cool women characters we've got. And then, but let's get back to the main ones. Let's get back to the really interesting characters.
Yes. I mean,
it's like every now and then
there's that one scene in Endgame that.
She's not alone. She's not alone.
So every now and then they present them to us to say, look, come on, sisterhood, get behind the women, and it's just like, oh, but you haven't made them very interesting up to this point.
No, there's another bit in the other one, the before the end game, Avengers,
Infinity War.
What was Infinity War, where there's a bit where they're, she's not alone. So
I quite like some of the female characters, but they've always been secondary characters, and they've never been that interesting. So when they suddenly say, "Hey, look, they're going to have their own film," I'm like, "Oh, really? Okay."
Well, the thing is, okay, now I know what you're saying about the whole thing, that there's people you will go online and you will find people who will make a statement like, well, any right-thinking person should want a Black Widow movie, and I have serious issues with the phrase "any right-thinking person" because it's just so up yourself. The person who's making that, the person who's saying that, exactly, saying I'm the right-thinking person and you should agree with me because I am right. So I have issues with that phrase, but I always thought that they shouldn't do a Black Widow movie because I was like, Black Widow I think works best as a supporting character. But with what they've done with Black Widow, I'm like, that's intriguing. I actually really want to see what they do. I want to see if they manage to pull it off, especially because if you've watched Endgame, you know that there's problems. I want to see how they pull it off with that. But I know they had the Eternals that was supposed to come out this year as well. And was it called Shang? Good lord, I don't want to.
Shang-Chi.
Yeah,
what's that? Kung Fu one.
Yeah.
I don't know about that, but I knew as soon as you said that, I know he was a famous Marvel character.
Yes, Shang-Chi. Yeah, Shang-Chi.
Bruce Lee.
Yeah. He was essentially done to sort of cash in on the popularity of Bruce Lee, but they're trying to sort
of.
That's right.
Him and Iron Fist, which I think has been
It's been a TV
series.
series on.
TV series.
It's
Isn't
been a much lambasted TV series on Netflix. There's
Yeah,
not
I
many
never
people
really-
who like
as-
it.
As comics go, Shang-Chi was in a comic called The Deadly Hands of Kung Fu, but I never really got into the comic. But I was
Yeah.
a Bruce Lee fan. I think I made a comment, and it got a lot of likes. Was like the Kung Fu movies came and went with Bruce Lee.
Oh,
Got a
I
lot
don't
of
know.
likes.
I don't know, Jackie Chan.
No. Sorry, Jackie Chan.
No.
Too comedic for my
And so
liking.
That's exactly why I like Jackie Chan, because Bruce Lee, love Bruce Lee and everything like that, but he was a fighter, not so much a performer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing with Bruce Lee.
I did see him recently on a Netflix thing. I think we did a review, didn't we, called the Foreigner. I think I did on one of our previous podcasts.
Yeah.
All
Jackie
right.
Chan. Yeah.
Oh,
which
okay.
is,
With Jackie Chan, yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is, but what I loved about Jackie Chan is I loved the whole kung fu stuff. But the fact is that Jackie Chan is a performer. The guy is an absolute slapstick
Yeah.
performer, and also the fact that by the time Jackie Chan came along, what they could do on film had gone so far beyond what Bruce Lee could do. Like the speed at which some of the things that Jackie Chan does, you never saw that in a Bruce Lee movie. Not that Bruce Lee couldn't do it. It's just that you didn't see it in a Bruce Lee movie. But the speed at which he does things and the set pieces that the guy does are mental. So I understand
and he did a lot of his own stunts, but
he did all his own stunts.
You know, for me, yeah, and broke loads of bones. I mean, I think he was excellent as a straight man in that film, The Foreigner. But I just never really. I guess I'm not a comedy slapsticky sort of person.
Okay, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I mean, it's like
Yeah.
those comedy westerns, like Cactus Jack and all those. They just don't do it for me. So I never really got that. It's funny with comedies because I don't know. I do like comedies, but not those slappy stick ones. And yet I love the Buster Keaton and the Laurel and Hardy ones. You know,
Yeah,
and
Buster
W.C. Fields ones.
Buster Keaton, a massive influence on Jackie Chan.
Definitely.
Yeah, a massive influence on Jackie Chan. Although it's you talking about kung fu movies. You can talk about Hollywood kung fu movies. Yeah, they're probably you have Bruce Lee, then you have some Jackie Chan stuff, but it was never as good as the Hong Kong stuff. But if you go to the Hong Kong stuff, there's 2 films with Jet Li in it called The Legend of Fong Sai-yuk.
Oh, right. Okay. I've not seen that.
Oh, The Legend of Fong Sai-yuk. Oh my word! And I think it's
Comedy?
it has comedic bits, but it also has dramatic bits in it. Like people die.
Jet Li's more dramatic, isn't it?
Yeah, because Fong Sai-yuk he's a real life character. He's
Okay.
Yeah, it's like the Legend of Fong Sai-yuk, and those. If you can get the subtitled versions, do not get the dubbed version. The dubbed version, which is called The Legend. Oh my God, it's terrible. It ruins a great film.
Brings back memories of the water margin when you see dubbed films. You think, yeah, don't do that.
yes. Just don't. Please don't. Yeah. So, but if you get, I'll tell you what, Shaun, I've got them on DVD. I might have to get them to you at some point. The Legend of Fong Sai-yuk.
Cool.
Love those films. All right, cool. Now, I think it's pretty much time for us to wrap up. It's pretty much time for. I think, but just before we go, I would just like to say that Shaun, you know your comment about. I think you might have seen it on Facebook. That your comment about how you trying to figure out what Holly looked like based on her voice.
Oh yeah. Yes, you got some pictures sent. Yeah.
Yeah,
That
yes.
was-
Okay. See now, for anybody who's listening to that, I just heard Shaun say, "Yeah, we got some pictures sent." Yes, the reality is as flirty as that sounds. I feel like my Facebook wall has become almost kind of like a dating website or something like that.
I don't know about.
Because it's kind of like but I think she was quite tickled by it. She was starting tickled by your description of what she looks like. And the funny thing is, you know that we're doing this on Zoom. I recorded a
I
snippet.
got the cats right, didn't I? Did I get the cats right?
No, you said a black cat named Sophie.
The black cats, yeah. But cats, anyway, yeah.
Yeah, definitely cats. Yeah.
Yeah.
Holly makes absolutely no secret about her cats. I think she talks about them all the time. But it's but the funny thing is that we also had one this week because last week I took a snippet of our call, the bit where I was disappearing behind doing the Invisible Man Trek thing,
Oh
on Zoom.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I put that up on Facebook, and I got a comment back from a regular listener to the show, and I will leave it up to you to figure out who that is, who went, "Oh my God, is that what Shaun looks like?"
Yeah, I can imagine. So,
Because she said that based on your voice, she had a totally different picture of what you looked like in her head.
It is funny, isn't it? It's strange when you hear you've just heard someone and then you get a mental picture of them and they turn out to be. I think that's the difference between seeing a film first and reading the book. If you read the book first and you see a film, you can sometimes be disappointed with the film because you get a mental picture of a character. Whereas if you've seen the film, you can read the book and then you get like the cinema version of
Yeah, you see them. You do.
But-
It does influence.
You hear that?
Except for, which I think was excellent, was Lord of the Rings. I know we go back to this, but the characters in that were as I pictured the characters when I read the book before I'd even seen the film. So that's an accomplishment.
I don't want to jinx it.
Bombadil.
Yeah, he didn't appear, did he? Bless him.
And I don't want to jinx it, but I said this on the interview with Yatish. I'm worried about Dune because I think it might be too much story for a film, but I think that they've got the casting spot on. Like every single character that I look at when I look at Timothée Chalamet as that small Atreides boy, and I'm looking at them and Rebecca Ferguson as Lady Jessica, I'm looking at them going, yeah, I can see this. I can, from the little I've read of the book, from the little I've heard of the book, rather, because I listened to the audiobook, I think that they've done that. I think I've got that right. So until next week when we hear somebody else's voice and we're trying to figure out what they look like. I think that's actually a really, really good game. Listen to their voice, try to describe them, and then they send a picture, and you're like, oh, sorry. Until next week.
Go back to audio.
Yes, go back to audio. Yeah, we don't want to see your faces. Until next week, it's a goodbye from me.
It's a goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me. Stay safe, everyone.
We go a bit slicker this week. Yeah.